like, hey gang! Welcome back to a very special Scooby Doo review. For those of you that don't know, a brand new episode of Scooby Doo and Guess Who just dropped. Just one episode dropped recently. It's a very special episode. Because for those of you that don't know, the host of Jeopardy, the trivia game show, Alex Trebek, recently lost his battle to cancer and has sadly passed away. And as someone who grew up with Jeopardy and watched it quite a lot, this I've known about him when he announced that he was battling with cancer. That hit me hard, and he it was just his time, I guess. But I'm very grateful for Mr. Trebek and everything. Like I said, I have a very long history of watching the show. I grew up watching Jeopardy every night with my family. That was like the bedtime tradition. We would have dinner and watch Wheel of Fortune and then Jeopardy, and then after that I'd go to bed. And while I don't think I ever got very smart watching the show, because most of it went over my head, a lot of obscure trivia knowledge. But you know, when they had those cartoon categories, I remember distinctly. They had a Nick Jr. or a Nickelodeon category, and I was able to nail those questions. Going, what is Blue's Clues? But that show means a lot to me, and just a few days ago, I got an email from the Boomerang streaming service, which is how I tend to watch these episodes of Scooby Doo and Guess Who. And as it turns out, they had an episode that they made start with Alex Trebek as the guest. I guess they were originally going to be holding this until the next batch of episodes dropped. I know I've fallen behind on covering Guess Who, but I just knew I had to do this episode because it really means a lot to me. But I got this email saying that in honor of Mr. Trebek, they're just releasing his episode, and so Volume 4 up there is just the one episode, and my goodness, this is a very special and kind of amazing episode. I'm just floored. Might be going into spoilers a bit, but if you're even slightly interested, go watch this episode, because this is probably one of the greatest episodes of Scooby Doo and Guess Who, and it's not even that great of a Scooby Doo episode, but maybe I don't know how much I'd feel about this if how much is affected by the sorrow I feel of knowing that this is probably one of the last things that Mr. Trebek did. But even then, this episode just really hits home because it's not so much of a Scooby-Doo episode. The entire episode is framed as a regular episode of Jeopardy! I mean, it's still animated and everything, but as soon as the episode begins, you get like a television turning on, and then you get the actual announcer saying, "This is Jeopardy!" introducing the contestants and everything, and it's literally the show. But Velma and surprisingly Shaggy are competing against the monster of this episode, a robot, who is like supposed to be like the first robot to compete on Jeopardy. I might be wrong, but didn't a computer or something compete on Jeopardy? It's been so long since I've regularly watched the show, but it's just amazing. Like it plays out almost exactly like a real episode of the show, though. The gang's stuff is kind of shoehorned in and everything. Like I'll get into it, but Mr. Trebek comes out, and I could just tell he had fun with this episode, and that really warms my heart, being able to see him. Sorry, getting a bit emotional, but but yeah, that's Velma obviously competing on Jeopardy. That's pretty neat and surprisingly Shaggy. But I kind of knew where they were probably going to go with Shaggy being on this episode. Um, and just so you know, there's not much of a mystery here, like at all. And what they do here is very fascinating. Like it's so different from almost every other episode. This is like the episode with the Flash, where it's just something very different and very new. It's not so much Alex Trebek getting pulled into a Scooby Doo mystery and coming into the world of Scooby Doo and teaming up with the gang to solve the mystery, so much as it is the gang going into the world of Jeopardy, and just some stuff is kind of going on with that. Um, but it the robot, Velma starts racking up points because they have real categories, real questions, and we actually get to see a good many of these. Like I said, the episode plays out like a real regular episode of Jeopardy, though shortened, because we're still trying to tell a Scooby Doo story here. So it's very heavily in Jeopardy, but for the sake of time, they after a couple questions are answered, then they go into like a little montage of just giving out answers as Velma starts racking up the points, and that drives the robot like bonkers. Goes on a rampage and starts destroying everything, uh, and it and Fred, Daphne, and Scooby are on the sidelines. There's like a earlier Scooby keeps interrupting the show, just cheering on Shaggy like it's a sporting event. It's kind of cute. I think one time it got a little annoying, but it's cute to see Scooby cheering on Shaggy, thinking he's so smart. But yeah, I mean, it's not really a bad guy in a mask or anything. As far as they know, it's just a defective, very temperamental robot who just is just a terribly sore loser. So when Velma takes an early lead, he just goes on a rampage, and what I love is that instead of doing a whole chase scene, they do that later, but Alex Trebek calms him down and uses his words and gives some real advice to the robot, telling him that hey, he's seen a lot of people get frustrated in his many years of hosting Jeopardy, and that there's still time to win. Just calm down. And then the creator of the robot comes and does some maintenance and hopefully fix him, and they get back into it. And I just love that Mr. Trebek, and it's instead of like over relying on like tricking the monster or whatever, he just gently calms him down and gives some very critical advice. I like that. It's very it plays very true to who I think Alex Trebek was, and who he like his ideals, and praising the human intellect, because like I said, the robot is a very sore loser and thinks a little too highly of robotics and human error. But Alex Trebek is like, don't count out human ingenuity. Don't count out the human mind just yet. And you just tend to see that over the course of this episode. But yeah, Shaggy's off to a rough start, and we kind of have like the the part where Mr. Trebek goes around and gets to know the contestants a little bit, and Velma's just like she's very excited. I think her voice actress was pretty excited to get the opportunity to play a character playing Jeopardy, and she's like motor mouthing about what the gang does, going around solving mysteries. I'm like, okay, yeah, they've played this card before. I think with the Morgan Freeman episode, being a little self-aware and just like how goofy their adventures are, but they really find it fun. Then he interviews Shaggy, and Shaggy's just like, no way, man, I don't like going to these mysteries because monsters freak me the heck out, man. So, like, tell me, Mr. Alex Trebek, why am I on a team that solves mysteries? Shaggy's just freaking out. But then we learned that both Velma and Shaggy got some of the highest scores when testing to get on the show, and Mr. Trebek is like, okay, I understand Velma at this point, but Shaggy, how did you do it? And of course, when Shaggy got the food categories and anything dealing with food, he is super knowledgeable about. So that's kind of how he's able to play this game. Is if it's about food, he can answer it. Everything else, he struggles, very much so. Um, but then they get back into the game. But Max rounds up a bit, and it they and then he goes on like another little rampage once Velma gets too far ahead of him again, and then and like the whole format of everything, it's Jeopardy. I just love it. Like the clues, the sound effects, the Jeopardy theme, it's all there. It's so good. But yeah, like I said, the robot goes on another rampage, and this is the part where they shoehorn in like the Scooby Doo stuff, because it's mostly Jeopardy, but they gotta shove in the Scooby Doo doors gag. I've said this before. I'm pretty tired of this gag, and even here they don't do anything interesting visually with it. The gang and Trebek start running through the Jeopardy studio, going from door to door. Nothing even slightest bit interesting, except for Mr. Trebek, who actually starts showing off his knowledge and commenting on how the Scooby Doo door trope, where it actually originates from, way back in the day. And I thought, okay, that was all right. I wish they had done something a little bit more visually interesting there, but I like that they at least put it in there and turned it into a teaching moment of how long that stupid hallway door thing has been around. That's really neat. And then they actually go back into like the old sets and stuff and get on like an older set for because Jeopardy's been around for quite a while, almost as old, not quite as old as Scooby Doo, but quite a bit up there. And they end up going on to one of the old game show sets where back when it was like $30 and $50 instead of $100 and $400 and everything. And they have a cute little gag where Mr. Trebek, where they're hiding behind the screens, and then pulling it down, and Mr. Trebek is saying, this member of the gang wears an ascot and says, "Hold the phone." That doesn't say "hold the phone" except for this show, but it's really cute. It's really cute. Seeing Trebek get in on the Scooby Doo stuff a little bit. They come across a whole bunch of barrels, and Mr. Trebek says, "Quick, gang, I got an idea." And for a second, I thought I knew where this was going. I thought they were going to hop in the barrels, and then we were going to do the old whack-a-mole gag where each one would pop out of the barrel, and then the robot would try and grab them, and then that whole bit. But no, they don't. Instead, they hop in the barrels, and then they tiptoe away in them, and to try and get away. And then Mr. Trebek gives another trivia moment of this kind of technique being used. And then he's trying to tell Shaggy and Scooby this and say, "This ringing any bells?" And they're like, "Sorry, Mr. Trebek, dude, but your big brain is hurting my tiny brain." I just thought that was very nice. And even better is this whole thing was a setup, a very nice callback to a very specific episode of Scooby Doo. Where Are You? And heck, you can even see it in the theme song. The moment the Funland episode where Scooby is in the barrel running away, and then his barrel smacks into Charlie the Haunted Robot, and then he peeks his head up and goes, and then the shot of the robot. they kind of recreate that with Scooby's barrel knocking into Max Kilobyte the robot, and having that kind of little shot there, and I thought that was a pretty cool callback. I like that. Subtle, but very subtle, but for us longtime Scooby fans, very nice. So little nod to old Scooby Doo, as well as this huge love letter to Jeopardy. But then they get back on set before the commercial break is over, and once again, Alex Trebek is able to talk down the robot and calm him down, and it gives like this whole gang this speech on the power of the mind, and how he over the years he has been shown this again and again on Jeopardy. And inspires them to do their best and beat the robot fairly in the game. And Shaggy's like even me? Well, actually, I was mostly talking about Velma. Oh. But then they go into Double Jeopardy, which, oh my gosh, like I said, I just love this. And Shaggy's in last place at this point in the negative numbers, but one of the categories Space Race, talking about all the different kinds of food. Shaggy gets on a roll and starts racking up those points, and he even gets a daily double. And the robot tries to intimidate him, but he's able to get that answer out, and Shaggy's able to get on the board. And I like that. It's just so good. It's just so good. Then of course the robot is mad about this, and then he starts racking up points like mad, to where so when they're going into Final Jeopardy, the robot's in first, Velma's in second, and surprisingly Shaggy is not out of the game just yet. To where they go into Final Jeopardy, and it's chemistry, but I knew there was something up with this. Like I said, I could tell where this was going. It's just what the specifics were was the only thing I didn't know. But surprisingly, or not so surprisingly, Shaggy wins. with the because the question has to do with an ingredient in baking, baking powder, but Shaggy only bets $1. But Velma and the robot make a mistake by saying baking soda, and it's a very technical thing, but they lose, and Shaggy wins by default, and I liked that. That was so good. And the robot just freaks out. I lost to a shaggy-haired hippie dude. Does not compute. Does not compute. Starts firing lasers, but they stop the robot and hack into it to find out who's really behind it. There was no mystery. Like I said, this wasn't really a big bad monster or anything. It was like very interesting that the monster was somebody they couldn't just outright stop because he was a game contestant. Like that was and everything. Like they were competing with it. Without these outbursts and Mr. Trebek calming him down to continue the game, and like I said, a very interesting twist. But they find out that I mean there were no suspects, there was no mystery. It was the cameraman. It was a standard Scooby hoax thing. There were no clues. There's no foreshadowing of this. Like I said, the whole episode was focused on the Jeopardy game, which I'm completely fine with, but you guys shoehorn that Scooby Doo plot in there. He put all his stocks into the robot, the people who make the robot's company. If the robot had won Jeopardy, then the stocks would have shot up and he would have been rich. So, but when Velma started winning, he had to sabotage and try attack them and everything. But all's well that ends well, and Scooby's saying is just like they have like this joke where he starts talking to Alex Trebek by phrasing everything as a question. He's just like, "No, Scooby, you don't have to do that." What is railroad? Mr. Trebek gets to say the line, "What is Scooby Dooby Doo?" And that was the end of the episode. And like I said, I loved almost every second of this. It was not a very good Scooby mystery. Nothing very particularly funny. No great gags or anything. Other than yeah, Shaggy and Velma competing. Fred and Daphne don't really get anything to do here besides just trying to keep Scooby restrained because he's rooting for Shaggy. And Mr. Trebek, I can tell in his voice that he seemed to have fun with this, and he plays it completely straight, just straight up hosting the show, and I loved that. I just loved this. It's just so good. It makes me hopeful for that maybe they can do more episodes like this. Not necessarily game show, but like try and put the gang a little bit more into whatever the guest character's world is, because they haven't been able to quite do that a whole lot. They, like I said, the Batman episode and the Wonder Woman episode is more like it wasn't quite what I was hoping for with those. And a lot of these mysteries are just standard Scooby mysteries, and the guest character just kind of tags along. But this was something wholly unique and different. Like I want more creative episodes like this. That's really all there is to it. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode if you haven't checked it out yet. And thank you everybody so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe for more. I always enjoy doing these when I can find the time. And until next time, Scooby Dooby Doo!